working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because here's what we know. There's no such thing as job security. Here's what we know. The impact of the coronavirus on your ability to stay employed, the impact of the coronavirus has been devastating. Devastating. And this is a time that you have to look at you. You have to learn something new, something that you love, and something that you can get training and coaching on from someone who's experienced and trained in that area to accelerate your growth and credibility and development so that you can have something else going for you other than a job. I want to help you do that. And for those of you who are already there and want to do what those young people do, I like what the young folks, they talk about BYOB, be your own boss. If you're ready, I want you to put voice in the comment section. Put voice in the comment section. I've been thinking about what I'm going to share with you today. And I've been tracing my tracks. People are always asking me, what did you do differently than others, the thousands of other speakers out here that allowed you to become a national and an international voice of motivation and greatness? And part of the process is I decided I wanted something new for myself. I wanted something new for my family. And I wanted to be able to control my own destiny. I didn't want to be a volunteer victim. We've been conditioned, we've been trained for a job. Things have changed. You got to be an entrepreneur now. You want to create something that you can control. You want to create and have something that you determine how much you're worth, not somebody else determining that. And today you have to live life like you mean it. This is no time that things have changed. We've got to change. We've got to change and with a fierceness, because that's what it is. That the things that are dramatic and the millions of people that are emboldened and determined to hold you down, we've got to be stronger than them and more determined than them. Everybody can use this. What I'm going to talk about today, the value of improving yourself and working on yourself.
That's right, you. And why you are so important in this world. The most important thing you have to remember is that you got to stop trying to be like everybody else. Stop trying to be something that you're not meant to be. Stop trying to force yourself to be like other people. What people are and who they are and what they do, regardless if it's good or bad, that's their life, that's what they do. Now we can absorb that information, we can learn from some of that information, but when it's all said and done, you cannot take away from who you really are. The best thing you can do is make the most of the life that you have been given and push forward and get everything you can get out of it. Because you only have so much time in this world, so you got to make the most of it. Now, this thing about being like other people, we look at people, we see the success stories. Everybody's out here, some anyway, out here getting it in, doing their thing. We don't even really know how they got it, but they got it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's for you. You are here in this world for some kind of a reason, some kind of a purpose. Now, what do you do with it? We all want success, but at what cost? There are some sacrifices that you got to make, but don't sell your soul. So get out there and make the most of what you got. It's not going to be easy, I promise you that. Believe me, I know. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. But I'm not going to give up. And I will not sell my soul or sell myself short. But I will continue to work hard at what I have and what God has given me to be the best of me. Now you got to get out there and do the best of you. Because nobody's going to do you better than you. You just got to believe in it. Now there are a lot of people out there, there are a lot of motivational speakers out there, fitness guys, you name it. I can't compare myself to them, and I'm sure they don't compare themselves to me. All I can do is be the best of me. Will I make it? I'm looking forward to making it. Am I hopeful? Absolutely. But how much hope can I have? It's all about the doing part and the faith that I have to have. And that's what's going to get me to where I need to be. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. How long it's going to take? Don't know. But I'm still here, and I'm living, and I'm breathing, and I got to keep moving forward. And that's exactly what you got to do. So don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on the reality that you have a purpose in this world. Keep working hard. Dedicate yourself as best you can. Be the best makeup of yourself. Remember, you are here for a reason. Nobody's going to do you better than you. And you were made for who you are.
The work ethic's a big thing, man. Beat the sun up, that's one thing. You know, there's not a formula. It's like, what do you have to do to build a work ethic? Beating the sun up, it's just you'll never feel bad because you beat the sun up. I don't care. You bitch about it the whole morning, all the way up until you finally wake up, and you're gonna be like, man, I'm sure glad this was awesome. There's something happens before sun's come up that is different, the most different part of the day. It makes you feel good about yourself at the end of the day. On victories, like on victories. I see so many people get sucked into their own victories. And because their work ethic's broken, they don't keep working. They're like, oh, pat on the back. I got my deal. Let's go, let's take a vacation. And you see the destruction of these people. You know, Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl. He that night he's preparing for the next one. The work ethic is just, of all the top people, are so severe. So should be something. It's a great first question. Could be a whole book. Because one of the things, and the last thing I'll say on this is, this helps me, by the way. Just you asking me this, really, the whole thing helps me. The work ethic thing is, it's also so that you start pushing whoever you're in a space with and you're competing with. You know, you want to do some flexing, and the flexing doesn't have to be the car, because you can't just keep buying cars. You can flex work ethic. There's no budget. You can't go broke on it. It's never going to be bad for you. It might bother your spouse. Kids, it's never going to bother the kids. Don't kid yourself. The kids want you just enough, and then they're done. They're like, okay, get out of here. So that whole thing, they played this thing out in the 80s, I think, you know, oh, kids need quantity at a time. The kids just need a quality time. They don't want 3 hours. No kid wants 3 hours of their day. Maybe yours does, not mine does. Am I right on this? I only have 2 kids, so I don't know. And at 17, 18 years old, they're not going to want any of my time. And then they'll come back around later when they want money. And I'll be like, go get your own money. But the work ethic, you know, I do a lot of flexing on the work ethic thing to tell people where I've been, where I'm going, how much I'm going, what I'm doing. It's not for customers. It's for my staff, and it's for the competition, for anybody that thinks they're competition. And we're convinced I'm the most disliked speaker in the space by our contemporaries.
If the person is entrepreneurial and they ask me this question, I always tell them, you know, you've got to take care of your kids, you got to pay the bills. And I said, but, you know, tell me when you work. And they tell me, well, you know, I work, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 and I'm exhausted. And everything else. I said, well, what are you doing with the other 8 hours? Because that's what I did. I worked as a janitor all night long, middle of the night, everything else. I could compress time there because it was based on results, not time. So if I could do a great job in shorter time, I had that time. But then, what I start doing between, 7 o'clock at night and 2 in the morning, which is pretty much the time I worked, that's when I was developing myself, getting the skills, learning, educating, starting the business. So I think people just have to realize it's a gut-wrenching process. It's not, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Most people fail in entrepreneurship. The vast majority fail. 96% in 10 years, but what happens after 10 years? All clear sailing after that? Anybody remember Lehman Brothers? They ran a century. They had gross revenues over a century of more than $1 trillion with a T dollars. That's what went through their bank accounts over that century, and they're gone. So I don't think it's right for everybody. I think you have to really be clear, is your personality the right personality if you're going to begin in this area? And then if you're going to work for somebody else, you can still become financially free, but that means you got to stop being a consumer and become an owner of under entrepreneurs. You want to own businesses, right? Get out of just being, don't just own an iPhone, own the company. Not just Apple, obviously. But
how do you keep your energy up and your enthusiasm up? How do you do it?
I'm wired for it. It's my nature to some extent, but also the other part is I get to see results. I mean, who here has been touched by my work before? I'm curious. Anybody in this room? So look around the room and I just, how's it hard to be inspired when I'm in a room and a third or 40% or 50% have used my work? And so people come up to me every day, dozens of people a day if I'm traveling, and they tell me the most amazing stories. Outside my children and my wife, that's probably the greatest gift of my life. I never get tired of hearing it, and it just makes me want to deliver more, give more, have more impact.
You get the last word. Tell them what you want to know.
Well, if you're entrepreneurs out there, here's what I'd say to you. I'd say, don't be so damn hard on yourself. I know that sounds counter to being an achiever, but when you're beating yourself up, you're sucking out the energy you need to move forward. It's kind of like, I always tell people there's so much energy, and I've built mine. I do a lot of things to build my energy to be incredibly strong and have really strong endurance, because to me, energy is life.
The people who became the most successful in our society are people who broke the rules. There was no presidents for 24-hour news cycles until Ted Turner did it. There's so many people who got out of the box. Look at Apple and the birth of the whole notion of Apple, or Nike, I talk about in the book, and the birthing of that corporation, how they did something with the tennis shoe that had never been done before. If you only base your decisions on empirical data, you can only repeat what somebody else already did. If you follow your instincts and your own God-given creativity, we can go where we have not been before.
Be strong and very courageous. Be strong and very courageous. Be strong and be of good courage. Be strong and possess the land. Because God knows that for what you're going to do, it is not by outer strength. You understand? You understand. See, help me preach this thing this morning, girl. It's inner strength. So my fourth point is you got to have inner strength for this fight. It's not your outer strength. It's not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. So you got to have that gut strength, that belly strength, that devil-defying come hell or high water strength, that roll me out in front of them and I'll preach from a chair strength, that tenacity to take a licking and keep on ticking, that inner strength that when I can't do as I would, I'm going to do as I can, but I'm not going to stop doing. To the best of my ability, I'm going to stretch and go. Hallelujah! Be strong! Strong. I am afraid that too many times we have put so much focus on teaching you to be good seed that we haven't taught you the power of good soil. And so when we come to soil issues, the seed ignores the soil. We flick the channel. That has nothing to do with me. We close our eyes because we have been taught to be good seed, but we have not been taught to pay attention to soil. And yet the Bible is clear. Jesus says the sower went forth sowing seed. And some fell by the wayside. Some fell amongst rocks, some fell amongst thorns. The whole text is about environment. Look at you and look at your environment. Have you been positioned to flourish? Positioning has a lot to do with flourishing. To be in an environment, in a family that supports you. My sister and I were talking the other day. I was telling her what an amazing person she is, that all of our lives together and all the things that God did in my life, not once in all of the years that I've known her, and she was there when Mama had me, have I ever known her to be jealous of me. Not once, not ever. She has always been my cheerleader and my greatest fan. And she said, how could I be jealous of you? You're my brother. I said, a lot of people have siblings that hate them, that are jealous of them, that hope they choke. And some of my development has to be that God planted me in an environment of people that supported me. My brother, my sister, my mother, my father, they all supported me. You can have good seed, but if you've been in bad soil, people who hated you, environments that denied you, education that underserved you, communities that limited you, mentalities that poisoned you. Oh, do you hear what I'm saying? if your soil wasn't right, it doesn't mean that you're not right, but if your soil wasn't right, it's going to affect how you root and how you grow. And you might grow a little bit. The Bible says you can grow for a while, but then the thorns will choke you out, or the rocks will not have enough soil for your roots to grow. Are you blaming God for something you ought to be blaming the soil for?
Several years ago, when I was a director, I was hired under a change mandate. I remember showing up as this new whippersnapper full of ideas that I was going to change and transform the culture in one quick fell swoop. Showing up to that meeting with my agenda and my operations and my ideas, oh, what a train wreck and a colossal debacle that was. I had feedback from this area, I had pushback from this area, I had concerns and questions raised from this person. I interpreted all of that as an indictment about my leadership. And in fact, it wasn't. It was quite the opposite. I remember distinctly feeling like I was sitting on the bottom of a hill, and all of this feedback was like a giant snowball on the top of that hill that would just kept picking up momentum, and it would get bigger and bigger and bigger. And there I was at the bottom of the hill trying to hold it back, and boom, ran over. I went to my mentor to ask for some advice. And he said to me, Ivan, never go to a meeting with an idea that you already don't know the outcome of. In fact, he said, go slow to go fast. I remember hearing that. Go slow to go fast. What he meant by taking the time to find out the people who are most invested in what you're trying to share, who have the most to gain or lose, or whose jobs may be impacted the most, and being intentional and deliberate in hearing their feedback. Take moments to address their concerns, not as a part of an exercise that you're reading a book, but out of caring and really wanting to do what's best for the organization. When you finish that process with that individual, take the time now to go to the next person and repeat this process over and over again. When you approach it with this real intentional meaning and caring to find the best possible solution, then you have everybody on your bus. Then when you come back together and you bring the group together, and people can hear their thoughts and their ideas and their feedback expressed in your new process, they are more willing to follow. They are more inspired. They are more invested in creating sustainable and lasting change. If you can go slow to go fast, if you can take the time to do this work beforehand, you will drive a successful change mandate.
You are the sum total of all of the choices that you've made up until now. And anything about yourself or your life that you don't like or isn't working or isn't mobilizing you is to be looked at in terms of, can I grow? Rather than, why did I do it, or isn't this wrong? See, the two ways to motivate yourself are deficiency motivation, which says, where I am I don't like. I don't like what I've done. I don't like the fact that I can't do this well or I can't do that well. So I will list these things in my own repertoire, and then I will be constantly trying to repair those deficiencies, always assuming that I'm deficient, that there's something wrong with me, and I'm trying to fix it. And when you do that, you spend your whole life doing that. And you never arrive, because your life becomes a series of trying to get someplace else. And it is, if you follow that, if you live that, if you behave that, then what happens to you is you become a person who will always suffer from this disease called more. You always have to have more. Because whenever you are getting where you want to go, let's say you want $100,000 in the bank, and you work, and you struggle, and you deny yourself, and you do all of those things, and you finally you get there, and here you are, you got $100,000 in the bank. All of this stuff over here is, of course, your life, and that is all you know. That's what you know how to, that's how you are. That is your being. That is your way of being. So that when you do get here, what you will do is say, this is not enough. A no-limit person is never operating from deficiency or from lack in their life. They're never saying, I don't have enough. You see, you're never going to get enough. You already are everything. You're everything that you need. Think of it for just a moment. Everything that you need to have total bliss, perfection of your life, you already are. You already have it. You came into this world with nothing. That's how you're going out. And the time that you have here, what you have is your uniqueness, your specialness, And you don't need anything else. Now think on this. If you don't know how to appreciate what you have and where you are in your life, you don't need anything else. Because if you do get something else, you won't know how to appreciate that either. You'll just want more, or you'll want it to be different, or you'll want it to be the way it used to be, or you'll want someone else to be the way you think they should be. Successful people or no-limit people or self-actualizing people or inner-directed people, whatever labels that have been put on them by great thinkers and philosophers and therapists and people that have looked at human beings, these kinds of people are people who always have enough. There are some people, if you invite them over and you say, I'd like you to come over tonight, and I'd like you to stay over if you can, instead of having to drive back. And they'll say, well, can you stay? And I say, well, I don't know if I can stay or not. Well, you could sleep on the cot. Oh, no, I could never sleep on the cot. I can't sleep on cots. I got a sciatica. Don't you know that I have back pain and cots? No, that's out of the question. I couldn't sleep on a cot. And what about breakfast? Well, we don't have any food, but we have some old grapefruit that are in the refrigerator. They have a few spots on them. Oh, no, I could never eat grapefruit. Spots? No, thanks. I can't eat grapefruit spots. I just couldn't do that, And these are people who never have enough. They are not able to be flexible and to change.
But I think some very positive signs are beginning to appear. I think we're starting to realize that we'd better remember what got us this far if we expect to go any farther. So I'm going to tell you where the word character comes from, and I hope it has as big an effect on you as it did on me. But first I want to just quickly mention the origins of another word that people often confuse with character, just to clarify the differences. That other word is charisma, and I think that it's often confused with character today. Charisma is derived from a Greek word meaning an ability to elicit favor in other people. It's a magnetic quality of personality that people respond to as if it were magic. Charisma is almost like a magic wand that confers power over others. But character has a very different origin. Character comes from a Greek word meaning chisel, or the mark left by a chisel. And of course, a chisel is a sharp steel tool used for making a sculpture out of a hard or difficult material like granite or marble. And a chisel is also used for stripping away waste material from an object, stripping away stuff that might get in the way in order to get down to the essential thing, the thing that really matters. So in its origins, the word character isn't related to a word like charisma, which we've described as a kind of magic wand. Character isn't a magic wand, and I hope you'll remember that. You've got to chisel your character out of the raw material of yourself, just like a sculptor has to create a statue. The raw material is always there. Everything that happens to you, good or bad, is an opportunity for building your character. You may have noticed it already. In both its definition and its derivation, character doesn't refer to other people. It doesn't refer to having power over other people or getting other people to follow you or gaining favor with other people. Character is something that you have and that you are. You could be marooned on a desert island and your character would still be important. In fact, it would likely be very important in that situation. But charisma wouldn't do you any good at all. Charisma requires the presence of others, while character is all about you. Character is the person you are after you've chiseled and have gotten past all the unnecessary material to what's underneath. A really charismatic person can make people believe there's pie in the sky, or that the sky is going to fall tomorrow, one just as easily as the other. By creating these expectations, charismatic individuals can indeed energize and inspire others, or terrify and demotivate them until the overblown scenarios are proven false and the charisma runs out. But a person of character doesn't need to be anyone's Pied Piper.
I believe in blissful satisfaction. Have you ever bitten into like a great steak and went, oh my gosh, it's delicious? You ever had that happen, yes or no? Did it make you not want the next bite more? Or did you want it more? See, there's a part of your brain, there's serotonin in your brain. The more you celebrate your wins, you celebrate when you're here, you have fun along the way, it begins to train your brain, you want to go to the next level. But if you cheat yourself from the celebration, you cheat yourself from the joy, it's always just a grind. Eventually there's this thing called frying and burnout where your brain doesn't want to do it anymore because it's not pleasurable. It gets no dopamine hit, no serotonin hit, and it wants to stop. You have to be blissfully dissatisfied. I talk about this in one of my audios and my book. My wife's a great example of this. We're complete opposites. I'm running out of time. I'm a super aggressive achiever. My wife, I call my wife, she's easy happy, easy satisfied. If we were living in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere, but we could cuddle up all day long and kissy kissy, she'd be happy all day long. She wears jeans and t-shirts. She could care less about material things. She could not tell you within many decimal points how much money we have. I'm not even sure she knows, other than Bank of America, where any of the money is. Could care less about it. She just loves people, loves life. She's the daughter of a pastor, her brother's a pastor. She's just a happy person. And she's married to a complete psychopath. But my wife, we've been together for a long time, she's developed some, I love my wife, but I don't like her all the time. The longer, any of you that have been in a long-term marriage here, they start doing some crap, man, that you just drives you crazy. Anybody relate to that, yes or no? My wife has developed this very bizarre habit. I'm not sure how it started or where it started, but when she eats pleasurable food, she moans orgasmically. So we'll be eating lasagna at the house, kids at the table, and she just started this a few years ago, and she doesn't even know she's doing it. We'll be eating, how was school today? Great, say the prayer, and then, or like, I'm serious, or like she's eating a brownie. I'm like, that is so weird. Stop it in front of the kids. What is wrong with you? She's like, what am I doing? I'm like, I don't want to even tell you, but like, it's really uncomfortable. Stop it. She's like, it tastes so good. I'm like, babe, we got it. Stop. But she doesn't know she's doing it. So my son's birthday happens. We're at this restaurant and she's hot. My wife's super hot, right? And I say that being married a long time, he's hot, dude. And so we literally walk into this place and there's some dudes checking her out, and I'm Italian, and I was in a bad mood, and you shouldn't look at my wife more than about one time, right? So these guys look at me, and my kids know, now that I've become a public person, I've gotten better at this stuff, but like, you get to look at her once, maybe twice. You turn around with a whole table full of people, come slap the shit out of you, right? Excuse my language. So these guys are looking at her a little bit too long, and they're on the edge. They didn't know it, but they're about to get slapped. They didn't, you know what I'm talking about, guys, right? They didn't know it, but it was getting close. You do it again, I'm gonna smack you. Sure enough, we're at their table next to them. Her steak comes, takes the first bite. So she goes, what, am I doing it? I'm like, yes, you're doing it. My daughter's like, Mom, you're doing it. Sure enough, a few minutes later, this is embarrassing as hell. I can't even go slap these guys. These dudes are literally losing their minds, right? So we leave the dinner, we get home, we're getting ready to do what married people do after a night out. She's in the bed, and I go, hey, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go upstairs and grab a steak. And I'm throwing this thing in this bed with us, because I've never heard you make these kind of noises before. So we're throwing this steak in the mix, right? She's like, and she literally says to me, she goes, it's just so blissful. And I'm like, that's a training, because I'm dissatisfied and you're blissful. And I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of validity. You need to learn to be in bliss as you're dissatisfied. That bliss will cause you want to take next bite, next haul, next finance. At that same dinner, my daughter said to me, hey, Dad, my daughter's pretty, like she's like me. My son's a sweetie like his mom. My daughter goes, hey, Dad, what's up with the midlife crisis? She saw the video. I go, midlife crisis? What are you talking about? She goes, come on, social media, you're growing the beard out, the tight t-shirts, you're going through a midlife crisis. And I go, you know what? You're right. I am. Here's what you don't know. I was going through a young life crisis. When Daddy was 20 years old, I was going through a crisis to get to the next level at 21. I was going through a crisis when I was 28 to be better at 29. I was in a crisis when I was 35 to be a better version of me at 36. And guess what, boo? When Daddy's 55, I'll be in another crisis before I get to 56. And that's a fact. Anybody that knows me, if you want to adopt one of my personality traits, I'm in a crisis to get to the next level.
Talk to God often. Even if you're not perfect, just talk to Him every day. You don't have to be in the same faith I'm in, or you ain't got to call God the same thing I call Him. But listen to me, you do have to call Him, though.
The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. And guys, I believe that's true in my life, and it's true in your life. That there's a lot of things that are calling out to you. There's shame that's calling out to you. There's not enough. There's insecurities. But I'm not as good as this person. But look at all the bad things I've done. But God, I can't get up there and speak, or I don't have a voice like Hillsong. What can I do? But then we remember the voice of truth. God's promises on my life, God's promises on your life, that I'm a child of God, a son of the King of the world, who will forever reign. I was created in love, by love, and for love. He has an amazing plan for my life. Those voices of truth would say, I'm here for a reason. I might not be enough, but I'm more than conquerors through Him that loved me. So when I know I'm going to get scrutinized, I know I'll either win or lose. I know I'll be a hero or the GOAT. I also know it doesn't matter, because the God of this universe, He formed me in my mom's womb, and He said, through me you're more than enough, and I love you no matter what. And I have a perfect plan for your life. In your life, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, are you going to show the people around you your confidence in the Lord? You see, they might see it on your best day. They might see it when you leave church. They might see it when you leave Passion. Dang, I'm so confident in the Lord. It's awesome. I just got to hear Hillsong Band. I got to hear Passion. I got to hear Louis. I can express my confidence in the Lord. What about your worst days? What about your Mondays? What about when you get cut? Oh, hey, wait, that happened to me over and over again. What about when they say you're not good enough to do what you want to do? What about when you can't find that right person that you want to spend the rest of your life with? Do you still express confidence in the Lord? Because when we really want to have an impact on the rest of the world, then we're going to still have the same confidence in the Lord on our worst day that we have on our best day. You know, it was easy for me when I won championships in this stadium to say, hey, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You know, it's really hard when you get cut or you get traded or they say you're not good enough to say, you know what? I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Because I'm going to still express my confidence in Him. Because a few verses later in verse number 13, we learn, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, that doesn't mean that you can accomplish anything you want. If you're 5'5", you're probably not going to be in the NBA. But it does mean wherever God puts you, wherever you're at in life, He's going to give you the strength through Him to handle it, to conquer it, because you are more than conquerors through Him that loved you. So you might think, I'm in a tough time. I don't know how I'm going to get through, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and I'm going to express my confidence in Him. No matter if I just won the championship or I'm in the basement and I'm tied up and I don't know how much longer I have to live.
Living in the present. So often our mind is either in the past, focused on what didn't work out, who did us wrong, mistakes we've made, or it's in the future, thinking about our goals, worried about our finances. What if my health doesn't improve? The problem with being in the past or being in the future is you will miss the present. David said, "This is the day the Lord has made." Today is a gift from God. Are you fully engaged, making the most of each moment, loving your family, appreciating the simple things in life? Or are you in yesterday? Are you in tomorrow? The reason some relationships are not healthy is you came home from work, but you didn't really show up. Your mind was somewhere else. You played with your child, but you were in tomorrow, thinking about how you were going to accomplish that goal. Or you went to the office, your body was there, but your mind was in yesterday, thinking about what you should have done better. If you're going to be fulfilled, you have to show up for life. You have to be there when you get there. Not show up and be in the future, worried about how it's going to work out. Not show up and be in the past, live in regrets, dwelling on your disappointments. Come into today. Yes, it's good to have goals. I'm all for having vision, but you can't be so focused on what's next that you miss what you have right now. I know people that lost what they had going after what they wanted. They were so intent on reaching their goal, doing great things, that they took their family for granted. They came home, but they weren't there. They were distracted, thinking about what was next, planning for the future. They never came into the present. Victoria and I used to travel to India with my father. We had been married for a couple of years, and on this particular trip, on the way home, we were going to stop in Paris. My father was going to minister there for a few days, and we were so excited. Our first time being in Paris together. Before we left home, we put an offer in for a house that we really wanted to buy. We had sold our townhome and we found this place that we loved. Had a nice yard and big trees, and the house was so light and open, it was perfect. When we arrived in Paris, the first thing we did was call our realtor and ask if she had heard anything. She said nothing. The next morning, we woke up, called the realtor. Any news? Still nothing. During the day, we would go out and look at sites. The whole time, we were talking about that house, believing we were going to get it. As we walked the streets of Paris, we took pictures of things that we'd like to do to our new house. Here's a front we could put on it. Here's how we could do the landscaping. We were in Paris, but we weren't really there. Our mind was somewhere else. We were in the future, all the while missing the present. We could have been making the most of that moment, enjoying the sights, taking in that beautiful city. But because we were so focused on what we wanted, we missed what we had. If I could go back now, I'd say, Joel, enjoy where you are. Be present. At the right time, the doors will open. The opportunities will come. But while you're waiting, stay in the now.
And so, this is why we are here, and this is the meaning of retreat. It's a retreat from yourself in order to find what the Buddhists would call the no self, or what other teachings would call the deeper self, or the Atman, or your Buddha nature, or the Christ within, whatever term you want to use to point to it. And that's why we're here. So all the external things here are helpful. It's easier here to connect with the depths of who you are and realize the depths of who you are. Of course, when you leave here, then you get challenged again. It's not that you don't get challenged here too, and especially if you're still very much identified with the mind, you find many challenges wherever you go. This isn't right. Don't like that. He doesn't look very spiritual to me. Or the opposite, all these people are so much more spiritual than me. Do they know that I'm not spiritual? So the practice is to voluntarily, as much as possible, relinquish identification with the thinking mind and your usual self. And what very much helps with that is just as much as you can. Don't walk around as a heavy personality and person with it. No, walk around as a light, as a field of conscious perception, and like a little child, it goes and look at everything. In other words, presence practice. Here, it's more easier than in your usual surroundings. Presence practice, present moment practice. There's a lot of nature here. I recommend taking walks in nature, looking at the trees, at the sky. There's a lake, the grass, the flowers, many, many lovely things. Be as present as you can and alert. And as you walk around from one building to another, from here to there, really perceive. That already is a liberation from the usual self, because you're not thinking. You cannot really perceive your surroundings fully when your usual self is talking to you. And it's probably not talking about this present moment. It's talking about what you're going to encounter when you get back home, or what happened last week, or it's doubting that being here is actually a good thing, or it's criticizing something that shouldn't really be here, but it's here. You don't want to, because that's not a retreat. You haven't really retreated. You've retreated on the external level, but you have not used this opportunity to retreat from your usual self, your usual mind.
Paying attention is being present. And it's a skill, just like golf or tennis. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. And you know when someone's present with you in your life because they're paying attention to you. And you know when they're not present with you because they're not paying attention to you. So now, what's the relevance of that? Well, there's an intelligence that's giving you life that's always present. And many people don't take the time to connect to it by being present, right? So if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and all of your attention is in the present moment, you got a lot of energy in the present moment. Now think about this. When I talk about being present, I'm saying that once you fall into the generous present moment, according to the quantum model of reality, all possibilities exist in the eternal now. So most people, they wake up in the morning, they come back to their senses. Your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact. It's a circuits of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. So people wake up in the morning and they think about their problems. Those problems are connected to certain people, certain things at certain times and places. The moment they start thinking about the problems, they're turning on the circuits from the past, their memories. All those memories are connected to emotions because emotions are the end product of past experiences. So that problem has the feeling of disgust, frustration, anger, judgment, hatred. And if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, and thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, that person's entire state of being is in the familiar past. And when you're in the familiar past, you crave the predictable future. So then what happens next? They come back to their senses, they sit up, they check their cell phone, they do their WhatsApp, they do their Twitter, they do their text, they do Facebook, they take a picture of their feet, they post it on Facebook, they tweet something, they check one email, they check another email, they check the news, and now their entire brain is connected to everything known in their life. Then they stand up and they go through a series of routine behaviors. They use the toilet, they go to the kitchen, have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, they go in the shower, they wash themselves the same way, they put on the same clothes, they walk out to the kitchen, they eat cereal with the same spoon, facing the same direction, they drive to work the same way, they do the same things, see the same people, and push the same emotional buttons, and they do this every day. So now their body is programmed into a predictable future based on what they did in their past, and they lost their free will to a program. And so now, if you're not getting up in the morning being defined by a vision of the future, then you'll be predictable in your life. You're left with the old memories of your past. So then, as I said, the stronger the emotion that you have some problem or person in your present reality, the more you're going to pay attention to that person or problem. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, all of your energy and your attention is going to all these different people and problems and places. And now, every one of those people and problems and places has a neurological network in your brain.